Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. Jagged Alliance 3 will release tomorrow, and I figured some of you will want to see a breakdown of all the stats and perks in the game. This sheet also lists talents and traits, but we will cover those tomorrow in a video reviewing all of your mercenary options. Let me know down in the comments if you have any questions or feedback regarding the information in this video. Your stat list is divided into sections. On the left are all the stats that determine your ability to select perks. On the right are stats that are more so skills you use throughout the game. Most of these stats can unlock dialogue options, so if that's important to you, make sure you have a well-balanced team. Your stats increase as you use them, so if you run around a lot in combat, then agility will increase, marksmanship increases the more you shoot, so on and so forth. You'll see this bonus noted as field experience, and you can also get stat increases from reading certain magazines, and that bonus will be noted as studying. You can see Barry is my explosives expert, so he has bonuses there from both sources. Finally, there are training operations you can take that will increase stats, but your team does not move while this is being done, so usually I don't do this with my main group. Starting on the left side, health is pretty self-explanatory as it measures the amount of damage you can take before going down. Agility measures the total amount of your action points, free movement at the start of your turn, and how stealthy you are. Action points are obviously critical regardless of what type of character you play. Free movement is the amount of squares your character can move at the beginning of their turn before they have to start using action points to move. This is crucial for characters who need to get close in order to do damage, such as melee or shotgun experts. Finally, there are some mercenaries who have traits, talents, or perks that make them excellent choices to open battle with a sneak attack, and agility will help them do that. Dexterity affects the bonus you get from aiming and your stealth kill chance. When you are about to shoot an opponent, a menu opens up telling you your range and what different body parts you can target, and to some degree how likely you are to be able to hit the shot. You can click the right mouse button to aim more, to focus in on the target, and it'll give you a higher probability that your shot will actually hit. Attacks from stealth do not automatically kill the opponent, and the more dexterity you have, the more likely you are to be able to kill an opponent with the stealth attack. Strength affects melee combat, throwing range, and the size of your personal inventory. While it is dangerous to use, melee combat is very effective in this game, so you should have at least one person who specializes in it. Grenades are very effective in this game, and I use them constantly with just about everybody, so this is definitely something to consider. Finally, there's a ton of gear you can pick up, but the vast majority of it is very easy to manage, so I don't consider inventory space to be a particularly big deal. Wisdom impacts your ability to notice hidden items and enemies. The hidden items portion is obviously nice since it reveals more loot for you. Enemies are hidden on the map until you get close to them, so having higher wisdom that reveals enemies sooner and lets you get proper positioning is very nice as well. Leadership affects your ability to train and allows you to get more positive or negative reactions for morale events. At first, you won't train your mercs because you cannot move or do other things while this is occurring, but later down the line, you'll have enough money to operate more than one team, so one squad can steadily train to get more powerful while the other squad ventures out in the world. Training militia becomes important after the first 10 or so hours into the game when you are on the mainland. They will protect pivotal points that you have taken, such as diamond mines, limiting the amount of times you have to backtrack to fend off an attack. Being able to train them faster is nice, but not really a must-have. This is not like you have to do it all the time. Morale for your team usually lifts due to killing enemies, and it can plummet if you take a lot of damage or one of your mercs dies. This will cause negative or positive statuses that impact your team, but honestly, I pretty much ignored leadership, and after over 20 hours, I haven't regretted it. Take this with a grain of salt, because I am not playing on the hardest difficulty, but I think if you play competently, you can safely ignore this stat. Marksmanship impacts your ability to shoot, and needless to say, this stat is a big deal. Mechanical impacts your ability to repair equipment, pick locks, handle machines, and hack devices. It's also used to detect and disarm non-explosive traps. In other words, it's an absolute must-have. Your equipment wears down constantly, and as it does, it loses effectiveness, so it's important that someone can repair it and do so quickly. Anyone who has played an RPG before knows that being able to pick locks is critical. Handling machines will give you parts that are necessary to repair your equipment, and hacking devices gives you intel that can reveal deploy points, enemy locations, or special special quests that you need to undertake in order to weaken forts. So yeah, you absolutely need someone highly skilled in mechanical. Explosives determine your damage and mishap chances when using explosives. It's also used when you are attempting to detect or disarm explosive traps. This is another absolute must-have stat. Explosive traps are everywhere, and grenades are the most effective way to damage enemies since they swarm in large numbers. The game is really good about giving you a steady supply of grenades, so definitely make sure you take advantage of this. Last on the list is medical, and this measures your ability to heal wounded mercs, which shows up in two ways. During combat, when you have taken damage, a medic has the bandage skill, which allows it to heal you up to your current maximum health. I say current because if you have taken a significant amount of damage, then you might have a wound, which lowers your maximum health. Medics cannot heal a wound in the field, but they can heal you up to the amount the wound allows. While you are traveling on the global map, you can undertake an operation to treat injuries. This will require the party to stop or split up while the doctor and up to 3 injured mercs gets healed. The higher your medical stat, the faster this will go. If you have multiple mercs with a decent medical stat, they can both serve as doctors, increasing the amount of mercs you can heal and how fast it will go. In other words, it's absolutely another must-have stat on your team. Alright, now that we have covered all the stats, let's talk about the perks. As you can see, the list is divided into 3 sections, and what perks are available to you is determined by your stats and what perks you have already selected. At the top, 70, 80, and 90 reference the amount of a particular stat that is needed to select a perk. So if you want to select the stress management perk in the wisdom section, you need at least an 80 in wisdom. Perks that require an 80 in the appropriate stat also require you to have taken at least one previous perk in that same row. Perks that require a 90 in the stat require you to have taken at least 3 perks in the row. So as you can see, reaching the highest levels of power requires you to go all in on a particular playstyle. Let's start with the health perks, and the first one is full body contact, and it gives you 15 grit upon a successful melee attack. Grit is basically like temporary health and must be depleted by your enemies before they can start whittling down your actual health. This is a must-have perk for melee-oriented characters. You're going to get hit, and mitigating the damage is crucial. Next is Hit the Deck, which allows you to switch to prone for free, reducing damage from explosions by 20%. Lying prone also makes it significantly harder for enemies to shoot you. Jagged Alliance has 3 different stances you can take in combat: standing straight up, crouching, or all the way prone. In that order or in the exact opposite order. Moving to a different stance costs 1 action point, and consequently, switching from standing to lying prone will cost you 2 action points. This perk is a fantastic way to make your melee combatant a small target and definitely should be considered. Next on the list is Beefed Up, which increases your max health by 20%. Everybody can benefit from more health, but the mercs who have to be up close most especially could use this. Next is Rage, which allows you to deal an additional 10% damage for every wound that you have, and this is capped at 50%. So basically you can play as someone trying to mitigate and avoid damage, or you can use a more dangerous playstyle where you accept the damage and dish out punishment in return. In my opinion, this game is not easy, and playing to just swallow the bullets is going to wear thin very quickly. Revenge lets you make an interrupt attack with a firearm when taking significant damage from an enemy while not in cover. Interrupts are attacks that trigger when the enemy is taking their turn. The chance for this to trigger is based on your health. So this makes a lot of sense if you are playing with somebody using a shotgun, who is going to have to roam around and absorb damage. Personally, I prefer perks where you can guarantee when it will trigger, but this isn't a bad option. Vanguard lets you gain 15 grit when you end your turn out of cover and when you end your turn adjacent to an enemy. Absolutely a must-have perk for your melee combatant. This will make you significantly more tanky. Calm Under Fire transfers up to 3 unused action points to your next turn, and you get 5 grit for each action point that has been transferred. There will be many times when it's just not a good idea to rush in and punch somebody, so you'll have your melee expert sit tight while you try to find a better opportunity. Or you will be 1 short of the 3 AP necessary to do another swing. This perk will channel that seemingly wasted AP into additional grit and action points for your merc. Great stuff and definitely something to consider. Hold position gives you a percentage bonus to damage reduction while using Overwatch or Pin Down. The percentage is based on your health. Overwatch lets you use your turn to cover a particular area and then fire at any enemy who enters it or attempts to attack from it. Pin Down burns a turn to deal massive damage against one enemy the next turn if they are still in your line of sight. Both of these actions will be used by shotgun experts all the time, and for them, this perk is absolutely a must-have. Finally, Battle Focus will give you 2 additional action points when you're hit by an enemy for the first time. Again, characters using shotguns or melee attacks will get hit every combat scenario, so this is a good option to consider. Next, we have Agility perks. Hit and Run allows you to make a free move after a melee attack. Obviously, this is fantastic for melee specialists because oftentimes they need to run long distances in order to reach their prey. Flanker gives you 15% more damage against flanked enemies, which are foes that are threatened from both sides. If you have someone roaming around in melee, it will be very easy to flank enemies, so this is a fantastic choice. Fast Runner increases the amount of free moves you get when wearing light or no armor. Melee mercs use grit, not armor, to protect themselves, so this is a nice option, although I don't think you need Hit and Run and this, so I would just choose one, and it would probably be best to do this one. Vantage Point gives you better accuracy when shooting from high ground, and the cost to climb up and down ladders is reduced. This is obviously fantastic for marksmanship characters, and it's great for your explosives experts because it's a lot easier to aim those grenades when you're doing it from high ground. Frog Leaping increases your free move range when starting your turn in cover, a nice option for marksmen and explosive experts. Lightning Reactions let you dodge the first successful enemy attack in combat by falling prone. I don't think this is really worth it for people who are up front and getting hit all the time, but for marksmen who for the most part don't expect to get hit and don't have good damage mitigation options, this is a fantastic way to make them more resilient. Lucky Streak is triggered when you make 2 critical hits in the same turn and makes you inspired, which gives you 4 more action points. Each bullet you fire has a chance to crit, and some guns fire a lot of bullets, so 2 crits in one turn isn't as crazy as it might sound. Also, melee strikes only cost 3 action points, so you can execute 2 crits in the same turn that way as well. Depending on the type of build you're using, this might be fantastic. Anatomical Precision gives you 50% more critical damage. Yep, most likely you'll want this. Total Concentration allows your attacks to deal 30% extra damage after a kill, but it ends when you miss or at the end of combat. Any character you could depend on to hit and kill consistently, such as a sniper, will benefit greatly from this. Next is the Dexterity list, starting with Untraceable, which slows down enemy detection while sneaking, and Failed Stealth Kills, meaning attacks from stealth that don't kill the enemy, deal 20% more damage. Personally, I don't like this because I'd rather put more effort into my character so stealth attacks do successfully kill. Opportunistic Killer allows you to crit when using interrupt attacks, and you automatically reload if Overwatch was used on the last turn. This comes down to playstyle, so if you use Overwatch all the time, then this will be useful. Deadeye gives you 5% extra crit chance every time you aim. This perk is absolutely something you want to use for snipers and some of your other ranged combatants as well. Fire Routine makes you inspired after you land 2 hits while in Overwatch. Again, the usefulness of this perk is determined by how often you use Overwatch. Reactive Fire allows you to make a firearm interrupt attack when an enemy attack misses you during their turn. The chance this will be triggered is based on your dexterity, and it will not happen when you are taking cover. This is a great option if you have a shotgun merc. Ambusher gives you an increased chance for extra stealth kills when sneaking, and if an enemy survives a stealth kill attempt, they are suppressed, which lowers their action points by 4 for the turn. I don't understand this perk because there's nothing in the game that says your stealth kills are limited, so I don't know what extra stealth kills means. Assuming it just means you have a great chance to kill enemies when attacking them from stealth, this is a great option for your stealth merc. Sharpshooter gives you 2 possible aims with your first attack each turn, and you'll deal additional damage determined by your marksmanship stat. Absolutely a must-have for your ranged damage dealer. Killzone allows you to make a bonus attack when making an interrupt attack. Again, if you use interrupts often, then this is a no-brainer. Assassination gives you an increased chance for stealth kills when you use aim 3 or more times while sneaking. This is great if your marksmanship character is the one that you use for stealth kills. As you'll see when we go over all the mercs, some of them have talents or traits that make them better choices for stealth kills, even if they don't use a sniper rifle. Before we review strength and wisdom perks, let me remind you that the channel has a free Discord available for you to join, and the link is in the description. If you enjoyed this video, I would also appreciate you hitting the like button. It really helps the channel out, and if you want to support this kind of content, please consider becoming a member of the channel where you will get access to full playthrough episodes. Next up is the strength list, starting with recoil management, which allows subsequent attacks against the same target to get a higher accuracy bonus. This is great with weapons that you can shoot with multiple times in one turn, such as a submachine gun. Breach and clear gives you a free move after throwing grenades or making shotgun attacks. This makes a lot of sense if you use shotguns, but I find mercs who focus on explosives usually don't need to move around that much. Killing Spree makes subsequent melee attacks that target different enemies do additional damage that is based on your strength stat. This is a fantastic option because melee attacks can eviscerate unarmored grunts with one slice of the throat, so you can oftentimes target two enemies in the same turn. Shock Assault gives you 30% extra crit chance with melee weapons and firearms when you use them within point blank range, or rather within 4 tiles. This should trigger all the time with your melee and shotgun specialist, and it is a must-have. Ironclad lets you retain half your free move range when wearing cumbersome armor. Another great pickup for your shotgun merc who won't have the option of accumulating grit, so they must wear heavier armor, but they also need enough movement to get within point-blank range. Sudden Strike allows you to not trigger interrupt attacks when making melee attacks, and your melee attacks cancel, overwatch, and pin down. This is absolutely a must-have perk. Enemies love to use Overwatch, and they are super lethal with it. Having a character who can shut that down will be a massive help to your entire team. Collateral Damage lets you deal 15% extra damage to enemies behind cover with heavy weapons and machine guns, and you'll deal 30% extra damage to objects. Most enemies prefer to operate behind cover, so that first damage increase is nice, but don't discount the damage increase for objects. A lot of objects, such as cars, explode, dealing massive damage to all the enemies around them, so being able to trigger that quickly will help you a great deal. Keep in mind that these weapons are only worthwhile if you have enough ammo to use them consistently, but if you do, this perk is great to have. True Strike makes all your melee attacks crits, and they apply mark to the target, which makes the next attack against that enemy a crit as well. Does it even need to be stated that this perk is incredible? Pick this up ASAP if you can. Line Breaker makes you inspired after a point-blank range kill. Perfect for both your melee and shotgun specialists. No question you want this. Alright, finally, we have arrived at the wisdom perks, and the first one is Savior, which restores 20% more HP when using Bandage and gives you a free move when using Bandage on an ally. This is absolutely a must-have perk for your medic because not only do you want them to heal as much as possible, but sometimes they will have to travel long distances to get to the person who needs healing. If a merc has been down, you have a limited amount of time to bandage them up before they are permanently dead, and sometimes it only takes one turn for that to happen. That extra free move could be the difference between finishing the fight and healing later, or having to reload the entire thing. Distracting Shot is a firearm attack that doesn't provoke interrupt attacks and removes Overwatch or pin down. Again, enemies love to use those types of attacks, so you need people who are capable of shutting them down. This perk is one to consider. Arterial Shot removes the damage penalty when attempting to shoot arms and legs. Sometimes you have higher accuracy targeting arms or legs instead of the torso, and so it's nice to not have that damage penalty when you do so. Stress Management makes you inspired after suffering a negative effect for the first time in combat. You're going to get hit, so on some level negative effects cannot be avoided, but I feel like they're very limited with good tactics, so personally I would skip this. Dire Warning gives you a 15% chance to cause panic when your morale is high or very high. Panicked enemies will run away and they will be unable to do any actions during their turn. You should consistently get your morale that high, and this is a fantastic perk to have. Inspiring Strike increases morale when you deal more than 50 damage with a single attack. Again, if you are competent in combat, morale increases easily, so I don't think you need perks that focus on it. Painkiller is triggered when you use Bandage on an ally and provide an amount of grit to them depending upon your medical stat. If you are using bandage on an ally, they are probably in bad shape, so throwing some grit on them is a fantastic option. Shock and Awe gives you high morale right at the start of combat, and you deal 10% extra damage when morale is high or very high. This clearly makes sense, especially if you have already taken dire warning. Last on the list is Trick Shot, which applies a different status effect depending upon what body part you target. Leg shots will knock enemies down, which makes them more vulnerable to melee attacks. Arm shots give enemies numbness, which means they can only perform basic attacks. Enemies have just as vast an arsenal of potential attacks as you do, so this is actually a big deal. Finally, groin shots apply expose, which causes the enemy to lose all benefits of cover, clearly making them more vulnerable. All of these are great, and if your Wisdom Merc is good at consistently landing hits, you should take this perk. Alright, finally that completes the list of perks in the game. Tomorrow I will release a video that walks through all of your mercenaries one by one to tell you which ones I believe are the best. Hope all of you found this information beneficial and enjoyed the video. Take care.